You're a supporter of Donald Trump. How do you see what's happening in terms of the commentary yesterday around the Second Amendment, in terms of what's swirling around Hillary Clinton? How do you characterize the state of the race right now?
Well, with respect to the Second Amendment commentary yesterday, I actually heard it for the first time on another network in an interview, and I couldn't understand what people were upset about. He seemed to be talking about the influence of the NRA in politics, which is very substantial, and I wasn't sure why people objected to that. So I didn't hear it the same way that I guess some other people on the other side of the political fence heard it, so it didn't bother me that much. I think today he needs to stay focused on the economy, the economy, the economy. Talk about Hillary Clinton's problems, the corruption of the Clintons, the corruption of the Clinton Foundation, how you go from being a public servant for the past 30 years, you and your husband both in public service, and end up with a $100 or $200 million net worth. I think these are issues that he should stay focused on, and hopefully there won't be any other comments that sort of divert attention from Hillary Clinton's very substantial problems and the economy, which is what he needs to stay focused on.
Do you think he can do it, Andy? I mean, you're an advisor, a supporter. What do you think? I mean, because he keeps veering off on other issues.
It's interesting because he makes comments that I don't think would get as much attention if they were made by comments by candidates on the left or candidates from the Democratic Party. But the press really goes after things he says to try and characterize them in the worst way. And I don't know how you advise somebody not to do that. You want your candidate to say what he feels. I mean, he's a very authentic candidate. You hear exactly what he's thinking, but he's not used to phrasing things like politicians do,
right,
so they don't get criticized in the press. And I think that's something he's just going to have to learn how to do over the next couple of months.
Yeah, I mean, that's the reality.
Hopefully that was the last one.
The press is there, and they are going to de-emphasize what's happening around Hillary Clinton. I mean, these emails today and the connection between the Clinton Foundation not being spoken about in most media, and it's all about Donald Trump and the Second Amendment comments. Let me ask you, Andy, I want to get the panel in real quick, but in terms of the economic speech this week, you're a business guy. Do you think that Trump's economic speech and his plans for a 15% corporate tax rate, the 10% repatriation, is that going to move the needle on economic growth?
Absolutely. That was a great economic speech. And my buddy Art Laffer was on your show a little earlier. And I don't know how much I can add to what he said, but I mean, the tax plan's incredible. It's a pro-growth tax plan. It'll encourage investment. It'll give taxpayers more money to spend. He's got a great plan on regulation. Regulations are strangling American business. Hillary Clinton has never seen a regulation she doesn't like. Every problem she raises on her website, she thinks has a government mandate, a law, or a regulation as a solution. Right. And it's a great energy policy as well. We need to keep energy policy down. We need to keep energy policy at the forefront. Use all of our natural resources. Stop sending hundreds of millions of dollars to the Middle East to fund more terrorism. We need to become energy independent. So I think it's really a great plan. Steve Moore and Larry Kudlow were involved in this. They did a great job. God, I hope that plan goes into effect, because we really need economic growth in this country to lift the middle class, open paths to the middle class, and reduce income inequality.
Well, we're about at 1.5% growth at this point. Here's Morgan.
Good morning, Andy. Great to see you. I just read
Great to see you, Morgan.
Thanks. I just read your op-ed in Forbes about income inequality, and I was so happy that you wrote on the subject, because I think Republicans have ceded this argument on income equality to the left. The left always has talking points about this. So can you tell our viewers, from a Republican businessman's perspective, what does the party offer? What does Donald Trump offer when it comes to income inequality? Because I think there's a lot of independents out there. There's a lot of people who haven't voted who feel like there is inequality in the country. They've heard the message from the Democrats, but I think they're still waiting on a strong message from the Republican Party.
The reasons for income inequality are basically we've got really a shortage of good-paying jobs, a shortage of careers. We've had wage stagnation. All of that, and we've closed off paths to the middle class. The middle class is deteriorating. The only way to fix that, there's only one way to solve those problems, and that's economic growth. The lesson of the last 7 years is that policies designed to reduce income inequality, such as increasing the minimum wage or increasing taxes on the wealthy, they don't generate economic growth. However, economic growth would reduce income inequality. What you need to be effective and helping people in the working class and helping people in the middle class is an economy that's growing and dynamic. You don't need the government taking our economic pie and dividing it into very equal, smaller and diminishing pieces. We need a bigger pie that grows so everybody gets a bigger piece. That's economic growth, and that's Donald Trump's plan, not Hillary Clinton's plan.
Andy, listen, you're a food guy. We've got to ask you about what Donald Trump is eating. I mean, he's a billionaire businessman, but he doesn't eat like one. He's posted pictures of himself eating Big Macs, eating KFC, taco bowls on social media. How does Trump's open love for fast food help him appeal to voters as a presidential candidate? Is this resonating, this image of eating all this fast food?
Well, it'd probably be a lot more effective for him if he ate at Carl's Jr. and Hardee's more often. We don't have a Carl's Jr. or a Hardee's in New York, but we will, I think, within the next year. So hopefully we'll get Donald in there. But look, I think it's a great image. His diet sounds a lot more like mine than President Obama's does. I'm not eating 7 almonds every night that are lightly salted, as his wife said he was. I go in more for the thick burger at Hardee's.
The president complained about the price of arugula in the 2008 election.
I also think Donald Trump won't be golfing as much as the current president right now, who's had over 300 rounds. I think he'll actually stick to actually being the commander-in-chief and forwarding this economy than
you know, I think Donald Trump could help fast food restaurants, though, actually, because so many of them have been expanding their healthy options, which I'm sure you felt the pressure to. And so maybe if he did eat from a Hardee's or something and picked maybe a salad or something a little bit more nutritious, to be like, hey, I'm behind fast food because it's an option for most people, but I'm also going to choose the healthy option.
But you got to get the biscuits at Hardee's.
What do you think? Balance?
You really do.
Especially
the biscuits
for the millennials.
So
the biscuits are great.
Andy, how's business going right now, by the way, Andy? How would you characterize things?
Business is fairly flat. We're part of the economy, and the economy hasn't been growing. It's been the last 3 quarters. If you take the average, it's slightly under 1%. That's near recessionary levels. So we're not seeing the kind of economic growth that you would see that would generate really vibrant retail activity. I think you've seen productivity go down. You've seen wages are still stagnating. So we're doing fine. I mean, the business is doing very well, but we're not seeing the kind of growth and energy that we could see if we had an economic plan, if we had government policies that were more concerned with economic growth and less concerned with punishing, different people at different income levels or punishing success, but more concerned with generating revenue for the government, which comes from economic growth, which does not necessarily mean higher tax rates. It generally means lower tax rates that encourage investment, because a lack of investment has been a very, very significant driving force in this terrible GDP growth that we're having. So we need to turn that around. And continuing with Obama's policies, which is what Hillary Clinton wants to do, is not going to turn that around.
Well,